social justice is one of the main things in Judaism.
I have to do something to show my Jewish religious concern.
We must look to our texts, to our values, to find a way to live together and live in peace and live with justice.
Rabbis' human rights seem to be an oxymoron. And of course, the fact of the matter is, rabbis should be at the forefront of human rights.
Rabbis for Human Rights is Israel's rabbinic voice of conscience, believing that all human beings are created b'tselem Elohim, in God's image. RHR advocates for the human rights of Israeli Jews, Israeli Arabs, foreign workers, and Palestinians alike. Alongside what has become the increasingly dominant understanding of Judaism in Israel today, a volatile mixture of extreme nationalism and extreme particularism, RHR is a voice for an equally Jewish, equally textually based, equally authentic, humanistic understanding of Torah. RHR is also the only rabbinic body in Israel today in which Orthodox, conservative, Reform, Renewal, and Reconstructionist rabbis work together, united by a common vision.
We know that the Jewish position is that God created one man. Why one man only? So that nobody could say all over the time, my father was greater than yours. We all are children of Adam. We all are children of God.
I've been a soldier, a paratrooper, and when I was in a regular army, I spent many months in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. But we were never going down to the narrow alleys of the refugee camps. We were always on the main roads. We never really encountered the daily life of Palestinians, particularly in refugee camps. During the first year of the Intifada, chasing little kids throwing stones at us into their narrow alleys and their, I cannot even call it houses, but these huts of clay. And when I entered those homes and I saw the condition of life in refugee camps, this was a shock for me, because I believed for so many years before that the '67 war, we liberated those territories on those people. We brought enlightenment, civilization, technology, democracy, Western culture into those areas. And after seeing with my own eyes the standard of living and realizing the meaning of being occupied and being an occupier on the other hand, that led me to, I must do something. And jointly with my colleagues, Rabbi David Foreman and all other colleagues who founded Rabbis for Human Rights, we met together. And for me, this was my personal motivation. I have to do something to show my Jewish religious concern for the human rights and to defend not only the name of Israel but of Judaism from the blasphemy that our name and the name of Jewish religion and the name of God is used in order to maintain this occupation and miserable situation of the Palestinians in the refugee camps particularly.
The first Intifada began in December of 1987. About 6 months after the outbreak of the Intifada, I was here at my office and I got a phone call from my wife that I had to come home right away, that something had happened to my daughter. And I ran home, and my daughter was in a state of absolute shock, crying hysterically. She was 14 and a half years old at the time. She had gone to the central bus station in Jerusalem on a Friday afternoon to receive her friend that was coming for the weekend, and she wore a T-shirt that said "Freedom for the Press" in Arabic, Hebrew, and English. The reason why she was wearing that T-shirt is because when the Intifada broke out, there were numbers of people on the right of the political spectrum who said the Intifada was really being inflamed by a hostile press on the left. Anyway, my daughter went to the bus station on Friday afternoon. It was very, very crowded, as is the case on Friday afternoon as people rush home to get ready for Shabbat. And she was surrounded by numbers of Israeli people, a crowd surrounding her, and they started to hurl all sorts of insults at her, calling her a traitor, spitting at her, using all sorts of sexual epithets that were really pretty bad. One can sort of understand what the situation was with T-shirts, because only a couple of weeks before that, Mayor Kahana's crew went through the old city of Jerusalem to the Arab quarter in a very demonstrative fashion, wearing their violent T-shirts, as it were, that said, "Never again, and we're going to suppress you," and that was considered very provocative, so people felt this was also a provocative T-shirt on the other end of the political spectrum. Anyway, she tried to break out of the circle. About 50 people surrounded her, and 2 National Guardsmen pushed her back in until finally a policewoman came and declared that the T-shirt was illegal. Now, remember, the backdrop was because of what Kahana had. In order to change her T-shirt on the spot, well, she doesn't run around with extra clothes, but just then her friend arrived. They broke out of the crowd, and she borrowed a T-shirt from her friend and changed it, and the T-shirt was confiscated by the policewoman. She came home, and she was trembling. And as I held her in my arms, the first words that she uttered were, "Abba, I now know what it must feel like to be an Arab." And I said to myself, look, I was an activist against the war in Vietnam. I went on the freedom rides in the south of the United States during the late 50s and early 60s. How could it be that I was relatively silent when it was clear that there were violations of human rights being carried out in my name by our own state? And so I sat down and I fashioned a letter to members of my colleagues, both Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox, and the response was overwhelmingly positive.
הוועדה המליצה על הענקת הפרס לארגון שומרי משפט, רבנים למען זכויות האדם, בזכות התנדבותם של רבנים מכל הזרמים, הפועלים בנחישות, באומץ ובהתמדה, להגנה ולשמירת זכויותיהם הבסיסיות של כל אדם, גם של בני העם הנמצא עמנו בסכסוך.